when it comes to sci-fi films, I can find them hit and miss. Sometimes I can enjoy them, sometimes I find them so overly complicated and hard to follow and full of so much jargon that if you're not a seasoned sci-fi watcher, it can be really hard to keep up. But I really wanted to watch Lost in Space because the cast for this is incredible. And I'm really pleased to say that I genuinely thoroughly enjoyed this. I can also say that I understood it, which is always, I'm sure you'll know what I mean. If you're not a sci fi fan, it can be hard to watch sci fi because they're usually written for sci fi fans and they can sometimes be overly complicated. And thankfully, Lost in Space is not dumbed down, but I was able to follow it, and delightfully so. It's absolutely beautiful. I'm aware that if you're a die-hard sci-fi fan, you may think differently, you may have higher expectations, but for somebody like me, who doesn't really want overly complicated sci-fi, and who likes the fact that there are children in this, which kind of makes it a bit easier to get on board with as well, I really liked it, and the cast is amazing, which I will talk about in a moment. This was released in 1998, directed by Stephen Hopkins, written by Akiva Goldsman, and I should point out just now, I haven't seen the TV series, I have no interest in watching the TV series. So I don't know how it compares, but feel free to shed some light on that if you wish without giving any spoilers. The cast is what drew me to this, and mainly because Lacey Chabert's in it, and she's so young and adorable, and her character was a bit annoying sometimes, but I really enjoyed her performance. And Jack Johnson plays Will as well, and he is absolutely brilliant in this. I think having children in this is quite unique because even though I don't watch that many sci-fi films, I'm aware that not many films set in space include children. And I think it gave it a really, well, it gave it the family feel that it's going for, because this family, the Robinsons, are basically going into space to fight for humanity. But unfortunately, something goes wrong basically as soon as they start flying out. And they have to be woken up from cryostasis to try and, well, get back home or get to where they're going or work out what the best thing is to do to solve this pretty terrible problem. And along the way, they encounter various species. We have, I'm not going to spoil it too much by giving away too much information about the types of beings they find, but they're spider based, and they are very eerie and very terrifying. And there's some fabulous sound effects that go along with the alien creatures that I really loved. The little monkey thing I thought was very peculiar, but I loved what it brought to it. There are moments in this that I think are really quite comedic. I don't believe it's meant to be a comedy. It is an action fantasy film, but, well, sci-fi fantasy. And I don't think it's ever marketed as a comedy. I could be wrong, but there is comedic relief in this that I think works exceptionally well. But it's also very heartfelt, again, with the family element that really tugs at the heartstrings. We have Mimi Rogers as Maureen Robinson, Heather Graham as Judy Robinson, and William Hurt as John Robinson. We also have Gary Oldman, who plays Dr. Smith, quite an interesting character. And we also have Jared Harris, who plays... I won't tell you what his character's name is because I think it spoils it a little bit, but I really enjoyed his performance and I thought it worked really well, and with what they were trying to suggest happened, I found it to be quite believable. It's very action-packed. As I said, it's easy enough to follow. So again, if you are a seasoned sci-fi viewer and you do watch a lot of sci-fi, you might not find it that engaging because it's, I guess, quite straightforward and maybe not as complicated as what some other sci-fi films are, which for me is perfect. It's kind of like the equivalent of a horror film that's not that scary. If you're new to horror, you'll probably be okay with it, whereas me as a horror addict, I need things to be more scary for me to enjoy it. I expect that seasoned sci-fi fans need even more sci-fi elements that are a bit more complicated to understand to get the benefit. But I do recommend it. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought Lacey Chabert was absolutely incredible, definitely brilliant. And the other big pull factor for me, of course, was Matt LeBlanc, who played a character, Don West, and I really liked his character. I feel like on the one hand, he was the glue that held people together. On the other hand, he was obviously an outsider, not part of the Robinsons. So it's a very interesting character and a very interesting dynamic he has with the family. His role is pretty fascinating and one that I kind of enjoyed. Lost in Space, I had relatively high hopes for because I loved the cast. Before I went into it, I knew there would be at least the cast that I liked. The narrative sounded interesting enough, but again, I was a little bit nervous that it would be a bit complicated for me as a very, very casual sci-fi viewer. But actually, I really adored it, and I know I don't have that much to compare it to, but I'm pretty confident in saying it's personally one of my favourite sci-fi films.